The next generation will surpass the one before it. It's a phrase that we've heard all too often in the Naruto world, but it's one that stands as a cornerstone of the franchise. Things that the older gen thought would be impossible, the new generation has a chance to turn into reality. With the position of Hokage, Kakashi Hatake embodies this very phrase in so many different ways, but due to a vast majority of Kakashi's tenure as Hokage happening off screen, many of you guys might not be aware of what Kakashi's Hokage face and how to properly discuss his Hokage Legacy. That's why in this newest installment of Hokage Legacy, we're going to be looking at the character Kakashi Hatake, the 6th Hokage of Konoha. Like all the other installments in this series, where we looked at Hokages 1 through 5, we're going to have 1 or 2 words chosen as the central point for this discussion that I feel best describes the legacy of Hokage Kakashi. For Kakashi, we're also going to pick 2 words, which are going to be bridge and visionary. In a way, it's very fitting that the man who's perhaps the most associated with the phrase the next generation will surpass the old one is given the word bridge. The same is true for the word visionary, being able to see into the future, because everything that we have in the Boruto era is a direct byproduct of Kakashi's vision for the future, and though he is no longer the Hokage governing the village, he did serve as the bridge to the current Hokage Naruto Uzumaki. Kakashi was only expected to be Hokage for a short period of time, until Naruto was ready to take over the mantle, and this was always going to be the case. Just like his Sharingan was only a temporary possession, so too was his power as the acting Hokage. However, his nearly 1 decade as Hokage saw him carve out a legacy that needed to be admired. The future that Kakashi envisioned was one where the new generation of leaders would take over the reins, a world where the need for ninjas wasn't as large as it was in the generations prior, a world where all 5 nations continue to maintain peace. Lastly, a world where the advancements that ninjas made could be passed down to normal civilians to better their lives. However, Kakashi always knew that the future that he saw wasn't going to be the future that he himself would govern over, but instead he would merely be a bridge that connected the ninja world that was recovering from the 4th Great Ninja War to the world that we currently see in Boruto. However, building a bridge for the future that won't be walked across until a decade into the future isn't easy, and for Kakashi, though the infinite Tsukuyomi was stopped, the world was far from at peace, and his vision for the future wouldn't be one that could be made possible without the steps that he took to make this into a reality. Kakashi's first few decisions as Hokage would set the foundation for his Hokage legacy and showed that he was steering the world towards a different era. He used this political capital to get pardons for Sasuke as well as Orochimaru and Kabuto, each on lifetime probation at the discretion of the Hokage, and Kakashi as Hokage agreed to be held accountable for their actions. And on top of this, Kakashi also needed Naruto, someone who was known to be Kakashi's successor, to make this plea as well. Shortly after becoming Hokage and handling the incident in the Land of Waves, which cost several of its citizens their lives, Kakashi began putting out the many fires that raged in the aftermath of the 4th Great Ninja War. The number of ninjas who were enlisted in the war and the number of dead bodies that were recovered didn't match up to the registry, which led to ninja like Naruto and Sai being dispatched on missions to round up the ninjas who fled from the battlefield after the 4th Great Ninja War ended. Some were mentally scarred by the war, and others who tasted their dream world inside the infinite Tsukuyomi. People like Boro from the Kara organization will become sympathizers to Madara and Kaguya. Others will flee to the Land of Silence to work under the shinobi named Gingo, who planned to economically weaken the 5 nations by taking mission work from them after he established his own country. Kakashi by himself as Hokage. Had Kakashi wanted to deal with the matter himself or lead the current 5 Kage in planning, Kakashi surely could have. However, Kakashi understood that his purpose was to be a bridge to the next generation, in particular the next generation of leaders, and to give them the opportunity to step up. Thus, arguably Kakashi's greatest achievement as Hokage was formed, the Shinobi Union. Similar to how the 5 Kage meet to discuss their issues, Kakashi formed the Shinobi Union, a legislative body for the Ninja Alliance that was specifically meant to groom the next generation of leaders. Each Kage of the 5 villages, as well as leaders from smaller villages, would select members from the new generation to serve in official roles. They would meet to go over mission requests, putting together rosters of ninjas tuning and ranking higher to carry out these missions, matters of urgency that would normally require the 5 Kage to meet to discuss the Shinobi Union would be given the opportunity to handle the matter themselves, and if no solution was found, it would be then that the situation would be kicked up to the 5 Kage. It was from this group that the Kage candidates of each ninja village would prove themselves, and eventually 4 out of the current 5 Kages in Boruto would ascend from this group. While this might seem like Kakashi smooth talking his way into doing less work by pushing his work and the work of the other Kages off to the next generation, it was actually Kakashi using himself and his Kage peers as building blocks for the bridge towards the future. The way Kakashi handled the rounding up of rogue ninjas who fled after the war, the way he was taking charge and keeping the Ninja Alliance running after the war, and the way he sped up the development of the next generation's Kages is why Kakashi was given so much room when the threat of Toneri Otsutsuki arose. It wasn't because Konoha had Naruto, though that was a factor. It was largely because Kakashi had proven himself as an effective leader during the 2 years that led into Naruto the Last. In fact, it would be because of his gamble on Naruto's team to handle Toneri that Kakashi be given even more political capital and the other things needed in order to serve as a bridge towards the future that he envisioned. Kakashi had already been grooming Naruto to become Hokage, pulling him by his teeth to get him ready for that Hokage position, making him join meetings with the feudal lords and the other VIPs, and he'd already placed Shikamaru on the Shinobi Union in a leadership position, which was also Kakashi getting Shikamaru ready both to be the Hokage advisor, but also ready to take over for Hokage if one day it was needed to happen. However, after Naruto the Last took place, Kakashi would turn his attention to Sakura Haruno to begin the process of grooming her as well. The reason being is that he already by this time promoted Sakura and Shikamaru to Jonin, but now Kakashi began placing even more pressure on Sakura in order for his vision of a world where the advancements of ninja could benefit everyday man. He would need Sakura to help him make this happen. In order for his vision of a world where the advancement of ninja could benefit the everyday man, he would need the help of Sakura Haruno. Sakura would join him in the meetings with the feudal lord of the Land of Fire, as well as in other meetings with other Kages and other lords from other countries. The purpose of this was the creation of those mental health clinics that Sakura successfully set up, first in the Land of Fire, but over time in other nations as well, in particular in the countries that served as the battlefields for the Fourth Great Ninja War. Children affected by the Fourth Great Ninja War, who returned home to their villages to find them destroyed by Bijudamas that were fired in the war, lands that were destroyed in the battles with Edo Tensei and the Zetsu army, children returning home to find that their fathers had died in the war, wives who found out the same about their husbands, ninjas who were mentally in shambles after watching comrade after comrade die next to them, and then being ripped out of the infinite Tsukiyomi where they experienced their own ideal dream world. Sakura's clinics were meant to help heal the minds of those people, but also begin the process of providing better medical care to everyday civilians by sharing the knowledge that she gained as Tsunade's student. However, Kakashi's willingness to pass down military intel and village level intel to normal citizens and private corporations came at a cost. Whereas he and Sakura saw this as a way to help the average person, there were others who would take this information to seek out profit. This is where one of Kakashi's most trying moments as Hokage would come into play. A threat level that, if it wasn't stopped, could undo the very Ninja Alliance itself. This was the manufacturing of the tailed beast drugs and the failed creation of the Sharingan pills. Right underneath Kakashi's own nose, the former loyalist to Danzo, who still served in the Anbu Black Ops, had worked to undermine him. DNA stolen from Naruto and Sasuke from the spot where they bled out in the final valley would be used to create these drugs. The tailed beast drug would give the user the power of the Nine Tails via the pills that were created from Naruto's DNA and the binding agent that was gained from the skin and the fresh blood of a direct descendant of the Sage of Six Paths, who was held in a secure site, having blood pumped from his body and skin ripped from his flesh in order to perfect these pills. One pill could hand over a massive reserve of Nine Tails chakra, but only in accordance to the user's own chakra levels. Only a handful of people were able to manifest 8 or 9 tails worth of power. The idea was to sell the tailed beast drugs to a nation or to a smaller village, and then sell the Sharingan pills to the other smaller nation in order to manufacture a war. However, recreating the power of the Sharingan proved to be impossible, even with the binding agent that was gained by the descendant of Hagoromo, a ninja using transformation jutsu and weaker versions of these Sharingan pills, pretended to be Sasuke, wanting to form a rebellion against the 5 great nations, and Kakashi be the one who was held responsible if Sasuke's name couldn't be cleared. It was due to what he had done in the past and Guard's act of goodwill that Kakashi was given the chance to resolve this threat before the 5 Kage summit was called, where the execution of Sasuke was expected to happen. In the end, after a battle large enough that Kakashi summoned Naruto to join him on his journey to the battlefield in order to assist Sakura into taking down the group of Anbu, juiced up on these Biju pills, including one of them who was able to sprout 9 tails. And after Sasuke returned to Konoha to take down those who had fled, Kakashi was able to avert another crisis as leader and further cement himself in the eyes of the other Kages. As the years passed on, Kakashi's vision for the ninja world that we know today was getting closer and closer towards becoming a reality. The large embracing of science after he became Hokage, his decision to declassify military intel for civilian research, and his decision in leading the other Kages to do the same and sharing the intel planted the seeds for the various forms of ninja tech that we have in the Boruto era now. However, these advancements in technology that Kakashi pushed for also led to easier communication between the villages, which allowed Kakashi once again to be given room to lead when dealing with Chino, one of the survivors of the Chinoki clan. Kakashi was allowed to have Sasuke look into the matter himself, but behind the scenes, Kakashi also worked with the 5th Mizukage and the 4th Raikage, who both had issues with Chino's guerrilla warfare tactics. It was due to Kakashi's prior leadership that he was given the decision to discuss what happened with Chino after she was defeated by Sasuke. By giving Chino the sentence that he did, Kakashi made it clear that in order for the world to move to the point where they no longer needed ninjas, the ninjas in power, ninjas such as himself, they couldn't continue to govern in the harsh ways that were of days long since past. If they were to achieve true change, the change that he was building towards, things would have to be done differently. And he was the one leading by example, even when people like the 4th Raikage openly disagreed, or people like Inoki silently cling to ways of the old. However, Kakashi's actions spoke loudly and clear, and the new generation of Kages who were coming up saw this message loud and clear, and change was indeed coming. Though he was only Hokage for a short period of time, just under a decade, Kakashi both understood his purpose and made sure to plant the seeds for the future that he wanted to see. Companies like the one that Dinky's family owns make technology and items to make everyday life easier. The clinics he helped Sakura open to provide mental care, but also help bring the other villages medically closer to Konoha. The number of missions in the Boruto era is now down drastically compared to when Kakashi became Hokage, but his forward thinking into turning over military intel to private companies has allowed Konoha to flourish to the point where money earned from these missions is not the sole lifeblood in order to fund the village itself. His decisions have led to more options for children of ninja. In the past, someone like Himawari would be expected to become a ninja. Now she has a choice whether or not she wants to. Though he stepped aside as Hokage when Boruto was 5 and Himawari was 3, he did so after making sure that Naruto's Hokage would have every advantage needed to continue to lead the ninja world into the new era that he saw in the future. However, that's gonna be it for this installment of Hokage Legacy. Normally, this is where I will plug the next Hokage. However, because Naruto's journey as Hokage is still ongoing, it doesn't make sense to look at Naruto's run as Hokage because that story is still being written. However, let me know what you are going to most remember Kakashi for down in the comment section below. But as always, guys, if you like anything I had to say, don't forget to comment, rate, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Have an awesome day, guys.